Hello and welcome to AM Language. This is our afternoon lesson at 4 o'clock, and today's lesson is going to be on how to talk about your interests. Now, here we are talking about, of course, our hobbies, but it might not just be an activity though. So, this isn't just talking about activities you like doing, which would be a hobby, but it's also about things that you genuinely find interesting and that you enjoy researching, reading up about, maybe watching. So now that this is shared online, we can begin. Good afternoon, LVS.com. Hi, Richard. How are you? I'm very well, LVS.com. Thank you very much for joining. Hario, hi, Richard. Good afternoon. How's it going? It's going well. Thank you. And thank you for joining. Maria, thank you very much for joining. Good afternoon. Nice to see you again. Elena, good afternoon, Richard. Good afternoon, Elena. Thank you very much for joining. Andres, good afternoon to you too. I hope you enjoyed your morning classes on Zoom. Yes. So we'll just start off in the live chat comment section. Okay, the live chat section of this. Irina, hello, Irina. In the live chat section, I'm going to ask you guys if you could share with me your interests. This can be anything from your favorite topics to your favorite activities. So, for example, if I talk about the activities I like, it would be things like skiing. Absolutely love skiing. Hello, Rosa. Good afternoon. Skiing, Krav Maga, football, rugby. If what else? Those would be like sports-wise. Other interests would be like traveling, for example, history, subjects. Yeah, history, theology. I would say astrophysics for me as well. Love looking at trying to learn stuff about science and the universe. And then other interests would also be like teaching methodology as well. So those would be my examples of some interests. And I invite you guys to, in the live chat section, just let me know what your interests are. So Arena, hello. Rosa, hello. Sandra, hello. Hisun, hello. Good afternoon. So thank you very much for joining. So yes, in the live chat section, please let me know, what are your interests? So just name the topic, name the activity, name the sport. Let me know, what are your interests? As once we have a few ideas, we can then continue and develop the conversation. Like I said, I mean, I have a lot of interests. And interests don't just have to be actual physical hobbies. They can be things of what you like to research. Even movies, actually, type of movies, or music, or playing the guitar. So there is it is related, of course, to hobbies, but some of our interests are not necessarily hobbies as well. Okay, let's see. Would anyone like to go first? Let me know what your interests are. What do you like spending your time looking at? Rosa, searching for a husband, hiking, diving, studying, and children. Okay, well, that's a good start, Rosa. Thank you very much. Have you ever used Tinder? I have tried Tinder once. It's as we would say in English, it's not my cup of tea when it comes to the dating scene. Elena, oh, needs to be on silent, my phone. Elena says, I do sports all of my life long. I do. Here you want this to be in like a present perfect, Elena. You want to say like, I have done sports. I've done sports. I've done sports all of my. I've done sports for the whole of my life. I've done sports for whole of my life. I think that's what you're trying to say. I have done sports for the whole of my life. I think that's what you're trying to say. My last sport is pole dance. Now here you've used my last. So because you have used my last, you have to remain in the past with the past simple. So my last sport was, for example, pole dancing. Oh, okay. And I am preparing for grid now. I don't know what a grid is, but maybe it's a competition or a level. I don't know. I'm sure pole dancing is difficult. I know I definitely couldn't do it. I even like psychology so much. It is also my job. Fair enough. Yes, psychology is very interesting. It certainly is a somewhat of an interest of mine as well. Um, I have one of the books I have that I haven't started to get around to reading yet is Carl Jung's book. Um, can't remember the title of the book now, but it's a well-known one. Arena. My interests are digital solutions, social networks, bicycle, and instead of bicycle, arena, we would say cycling. A bicycle is the is the physical thing, but the actual sport is cycling and traveling. Yes, travel arena. I completely agree. That's one of my favorite hobbies. In fact, it's what I spend most of my time thinking about in terms of my future travels. I should say that I am currently in the process of putting material together to try and create some YouTube educational language learning YouTube videos on some of my travels, especially to South America. Hario says, I like diving and I hope I can dive in Malta this year. Scuba diving is really good. I've always wanted to try it, and I think I want to try it very soon as well. I wanted to try scuba diving last year, but I didn't get round to it. But yeah, scuba diving is high on my list. I do recommend skydiving as well. When I was in New Zealand back in 2010, I went skydiving, and skydiving is so much fun. So if you like the idea of jumping out of a plane, I can recommend skydiving. It's good fun. And scuba diving in Malta is fantastic. I've heard from many people who have done it that it's probably one of the best activities you can do in Malta. So we now have a few. We now have a few good ideas here. So, like yesterday, I'm going to start off with introducing to you of how you can talk about your interests, phrases that you can use to help yourself talk about your interests. And then later on, we'll introduce the question side of things. So, how do you go about asking questions to do with interests? So, certain words we need to know. Now, some of some of these language structures you will have done so if you're an intermediate student, you might have done one or two of these language structures. If you're upper intermediate, I'm sure some of these language structures won't be new to you. And if you're pre-intermediate, then these structures will be new to you. First of all, is I'm keen on, let's say, cycling, for example. Sandra says, I like reading books, watching movies, shows, and documentaries about religion, health, food, and other topics. Sandra, I think those sound like really interesting topics, and well done. Nice use of English as well. So well done to you. Good stuff. So the first thing that you can use is I'm keen on, such as I'm keen on cycling. Now, when we use this term keen on. What we mean is like. We are using this word instead of like. So I'm keen on. So for instance, I am keen on something called, well, it's something that I call anyway. I'm keen on food holidays. So the idea behind a food holiday is that you pick your destination because of the food, which is why Naples or Napoli is very high on my list. I really want to do, in particular, I want to do a food holiday on pizza. Now, I am keen on travel and I am keen on pizza. And the idea is to compare pizza in Italy to pizza in New York. In particular, um, pizza in Napoli or from Napoli, and pizza in a part of New York called Brooklyn. Now, I was told while I was traveling in South America by a New Yorker, and he was saying that the best pizza in the world comes from New York in Brooklyn. Now, I disagreed. I said, no, surely not. I mean, pizza in Naples, Napoli, that has to be the best place on earth for pizza. So I'm keen on pizza, I'm keen on travel, and I am keen on the idea of doing a food holiday on pizza. So if you like the idea of food holidays, if you're keen on it, like the video and share. I have also had pizza from the highest point on earth where you can have pizza, and that's in Bolivia. Maria says, I had traveled in the last year because I can finding peace and knowing different customs. How is food or language? Okay, I see what you're trying to say there, Maria, and well done. I can understand what you're trying to say. This past year, you've traveled because you wanted to find some peace. And in the process, you wanted to learn about different cultures, different customs, as well as try different food and learn a different language. So I understand what you're saying there, Maria. Elena asks, can you explain the difference between I like to do and I like doing? If there is no difference in terms of meaning, but in terms of verb patterns, I would always encourage you to use a like plus verb ing. So in terms of the meaning, there's no difference. But grammatically, both are correct, but the one that you should be using is like plus verb ing. I like doing, I like running, I like seeing, I like traveling. That is the better version. I like to do something or I like to watch something. It's not grammatically incorrect, but it's at a very low. It's you will usually use it at a low level. So I would encourage you to use the verb ing. So we've now looked at keen on. The next one is tend to. I tend to cycle. So here, instead of, again, I tend to cycle in the mountains, for example. That could be an example. Now, tend to, if you use um, tend to simply means usually. This is an activity or something that you usually do. So, for instance, I tend to, um, when I go to a new place, I tend to do something that it's not really safe, but it's not really dangerous either. I tend to go on a what I call a walkabout on my own. I like to get lost in a new city. This simply means I walk around and I know where I am because I would have looked at the map before, but I don't want to be with a tour guide. I want to discover things for myself. And this is something I tend to do when I go to different places. I mean, I really enjoyed doing it in South America. I loved doing it in Italy. Italy is a really good place to, when you get to a place like Florence, for example, Firenze, to simply go walking around without a tour guide and just to enjoy the environment of being in the place. So that's tend to. So we've got keen on and tend to. Now let's develop this. Here you can then start using terms like, let's say we're talking about something like wine, for example. Here we have something called enthusiast, or enthusiast, sorry, enthusiast. Enthusiast. What did I do? Oh, I accidentally deleted it before I shared it. That's what I wanted to do. Now, this is, yes, it's the ah sound, enthusiast. Enthusiast. Now, when we say I'm a wine enthusiast, it means I really like drinking wine. I really like drinking wine, talking about wine, collecting wine, and so on and so forth. So for me, for instance, I am a wine enthusiast. I love wine. It's a I take a I take a keen interest in it. And this is another one as well. So we've got two here. I'm a wine enthusiast and I take a keen interest. Okay. Again, we could replace wine with whatever we're talking about. I'm a food enthusiast. I'm a travel enthusiast. I'm a language enthusiast. I'm a film enthusiast. Okay, so this means you take a keen interest. Now, if you take a keen interest in something, it means you like it, and you might even you like learning about it as well. So we've got these two terms here. So I am a wine enthusiast. I'm also a whiskey enthusiast. I really like, those are my two favorite alcoholic beverages, drinks, because for different reasons. I really like wine because of what happens when you drink wine and you eat food. So for me, it's because of its food connection. Whiskey, whiskey for me is a fantastic drink to have to relax. Now, I don't drink a lot of whiskey, but I like a little bit of whiskey now and again. And I like to collect whiskey as well, as I like to collect wine. Now, I take a keen interest in wine because I like to learn about it as well. Um, now, that would be my example. Another example would be like you can take a keen interest in religious theology, philosophy, science. You can take a keen interest in politics, for example. For instance, on the subject of politics, I like to take a keen interest in UK and American politics, for example. I find it quite interesting, but I don't like to look at it too much because it depresses me. But it's nonetheless, I like to take a keen interest. So those are some things that we can use. Like the video, and if you are a wine enthusiast, or if you are a political enthusiast, maybe you take a keen interest in politics. Maybe you take a keen interest in history, for example. Now, when it comes to history, at the moment, I'm reading a very interesting book. It's called Dominion. It's by an author called Tom Holland, and he's written a book about how the West was made. And of course, the first chapter is about the Greeks and Romans. And I take a keen interest in Greek and Roman history. Um, I think I mean, their culture is totally different to ours, but it's very interesting. So let me know in the comment section now. Let me know. What do you take a keen interest in? What type of enthusiast are you? Maybe you are a gaming enthusiast. For instance, myself, I I tend to play PlayStation. I enjoy games like Call of Duty, FIFA, Pro Evolution Soccer. I remember growing up, I used to love playing GoldenEye on Nintendo 64. Then you also had, what was it called? Can't remember now. Lots of very good games. So let me know in the live chat. We'll start off with, let me set the ball rolling. Let me know what you are keen on. Okay, what are you keen on? Now, this is the start of questioning as well. What are you keen on? So this is how you can use keen on in a question. What are you keen on? Elena, I take a keen interest in fairy tale therapy. Wow, fairy tale therapy. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. Um, I would like to know what fairy tale therapy is. Um, if I think about it, maybe it's to do with. Is there an element of Carl Jung in this? Maybe does it involve looking at stories and seeing how there's meaning in the stories that some in some way related to real life? Um, Maybe fairy tale story like Beauty and the Beast or The Little Mermaid or Peter Pan. Let me know, Elena, what fairy tale therapy is. So that's the question. What are you keen on? What are you keen on? If you want to use tend to, you can ask the question by saying, what do you tend to? And then you've got whatever the object of your question is, such as what do you tend to watch? What do you tend to do? What do you tend to do for exercise, for example? So that could be your kind of question. What do you tend to do? And then you put your object. If you want to use something like the word enthusiast, you can say, you could use a question such as, would you say, if you remember from yesterday, would you say you are a or an something enthusiast, for example? Here, at this point, people would already have an idea what your interest is. And Maria says, when I traveled, usually I take a keen bought shoes. What you want to say here is when you travel, you are okay. Here, what you want to say is when I travel, I am keen on taking uh, or buying a good pair of shoes. That's what you want to. That's what you want to say. Richard, what is correct? Traveled or traveled? Both. It depends. UK or American English. UK English. This is going to be with two L's. Traveled. US English is going to be just one R. Traveled. Now, I would encourage you to use double L, but that's because I'm English. So that's how we can use that one. And let's see, Elena. Okay, so this is answering my question about fairy tale therapy. All of stories keep values and they help even to see your life from the other side and find a solution. The study is based on archetypes. That's it. Yes, okay. I think Carl Jung has a book to do with archetypes, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Shoes. Maria says shoes or clothes. It depends. This would be clothes, and shoes are always what you put on your feet. You can put both. I'm keen on buying new clothes and shoes, for example, Maria. Irina says, I take a keen interest in films, especially where human rights stories are described. Oh, right, heavy. What is your favorite movie then, Irina, when it comes to human rights stories? What would you say is your favorite film on that? Sandra says, I take a keen interest in ultra Orthodox Jew because I watched on Netflix the show Unorthodox. Okay, so here you want to say, that's nearly good, Sandra. You want to say, I take a keen interest in ultra ultra orthodox in I would put maybe Jewish in Jewish ultra orthodox or in ultra orthodox. We could put it either side. In ultra orthodox. Ah, there we go. I would go with this. There you go. You can say it like this. I take a keen interest in ultra orthodox Judaism. So you can use the term Judaism. Because I watched a program on it on Netflix. Okay, that's good. Um, Irina says yes. Yesterday I watched the movie Unorthodox, and I'm impressed. This is a new movie, Unorthodox. Okay, there we go. Good stuff. Okay, very good. Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. I have not watched that yet. Okay. Um, so don't forget about the other things, for instance. So here we've got a question. What would you say you are an enthusiast? So, for instance, would you say you are a political enthusiast? Would you say you are a psychological enthusiast, for example? That's how you can create the question. And finally, take a keen interest in. To answer, what do you take a keen interest in? Or do you take a keen interest in? And this, if you know what the subject is already, interest in whatever you guys are talking about. So, for example, if I'm talking to Arena, I can ask Arena, do you take a keen interest in psychology? I could ask Sandra, do you take a keen interest in ultra Orthodox Judaism, for example? I could ask Maria, do you take a keen interest in travel? Um, I could ask Elena. Um, I could ask Elena if I use a slightly different question. I could ask Elena, would you say you are would you say you are a fairy tale story enthusiast, for example? So this is how I can ask these questions as well. So now that it's 28 past, what I'm going to invite you guys to do is see if you can ask me some questions. Look through the live chat comment section. I've put some examples in there of how to ask the question with some of these examples, and see if you can create a question for me to answer. So, just to give you an idea, for instance, you might ask me, do you take a keen interest in sport? And if that is your question, then my answer would be yes, I am keen on sport, for example. So I will now give you the opportunity to try and ask me some questions using this language structure. If you have any questions, feel free to ask as well. Ah, okay. Um, let's see. If you have any, if you would like to have more suggestions, feel free to ask as well. I think the thing about taking a keen interest in something, like at the moment, while I wait for you guys to create a question. Okay, here we go. Sandra asks, Richard, do you take a keen interest in religions? Yes, I do. I am keen on learning about different religions. So, for example, um, I take a keen interest in theology. And one of the things I am doing at the moment is I'm learning about a Greek philosophy in order to understand the thinking, the religious thinking, for instance, in the early state parts of the Catholic Church, for example. So what was interesting is to there's a very famous thinker, Saint Thomas Aquinas. But in order to understand Saint Thomas Aquinas, apparently you need to understand Aristotle. So I'm taking a keen interest in Aristotle at the moment to try and understand his logical thinking. So good question, Sandra. Yes, I do. Elena, would you say you are a bookworm? I wouldn't say I'm a bookworm. My one of my nieces is definitely a bookworm. But I am keen on books. So I am keen on books, but I can't say I'm a bookworm. I don't read 50 books or more in a year. I think on average, I mean, this year, okay, I'm reading rather thick books at the moment to do with philosophy, for example. So I don't think I'm going to read more than maybe 20 books this year. I'm working my way through Plato at the moment as well, and Euclid. So it's going to take me a long time, but I can't say I'm a bookworm, but I am keen on certain type of books. I'm also keen on fairy tale books as well. I like fiction when it's talking about something that is still related to reality, like Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia. I think that Harry Potter, I think there's a lot of interesting things in there. So Maria asks, I take a keen interest, read a Bible. Okay, nearly there. I take a keen interest. I take a keen interest in reading the Bible. Okay, now don't forget when you use interest in, and then you've got a verb, interest in, and then verb ing. I take a keen interest in. Now, this is to do with when you're using a verb. If you choose to use a verb, not a noun, but a verb, that's when you need to go with plus verb ing. So I take a keen interest in reading the Bible. I take a keen interest in reading. I take a keen interest in reading Harry Potter, for example. I need to use the verb ing if I'm not going to use a noun. For instance, I take a keen interest in science. So if I use in science, because science is not a verb, it's a noun, it's just science. So Maria, Richard, do you believe in God? The answer is yes, I do. Good question as well. Although, having said that, my interpretation of God is going to be more in line with Catholicism, as I'm a Catholic. Okay, so good questions coming my way so far. Let me know if you have any more questions. For instance, actually, or if in this case, I'm going to ask you guys a question as well at the same time, so we go back and forth. So, for instance, do any of you take a keen interest in science, for example? Now, for me, I take a keen interest in science for many reasons. My dad was a doctor, so I always found things about the body interesting. I also take I also take a keen interest in science when it comes to space as well. I think it's really fascinating. I love learning about, for instance, at the moment, I think black holes are very interesting. Um, I think also some interesting theories as well are always worth looking at. Um, and at times as well, I think science fiction movies are good fun to watch as well. Growing up, I always remembered watching Star Wars and thinking to myself, it would be great to have a lightsaber, but um, uh, unfortunately, that's not that's not possible. Do you take a keen interest in sustainability? Sandra, yes, I do take a keen interest in sustainability. I think it's a topic that is definitely important to think about. I think at the moment, the question of sustainability is very important as well. Um, so, good question, Sandra. Um, Okay. Let me know if any of you take a keen interest in science. I'm also going to ask another question. Okay. Do are any of you this time, are any of you keen on let's see, on what's the director's name that I'm thinking of? That's it. That's it. That's the question I was thinking of. Are any of you keen on Tarantino movies? Now, just to show you, do any of you take a keen interest in science? So I've started my question here with do. In this case, I've gone with keen on, and because I've gone with keen on, I'm going with are. So are any of you keen on Tarantino movies? Let me know if any of you are keen on Tarantino movies. I myself, I really enjoy Tarantino movies. I, I'm not sure what my favorite Tarantino movie is. I've always loved Pulp Fiction, for example. Sandra has asked, "Do you know the book Blackout?" I have heard of the book Blackout, but I have not watched the Netflix series Blackout. Let me know what you think about it. So yes, so two questions I've asked. Let me know what you guys answers are. Do any of you take a keen interest in science, or are any of you keen on Tarantino movies? Like I was saying, I really enjoyed Pulp Fiction. I thought Django Unchained is a good movie. Um, his last movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was entertaining. It was long, but entertaining. So let me know what you guys think. We're coming up to just 5 minutes left of the YouTube lesson. So let me know what you guys think. In the meantime, let's see. Sandra's asked, the book is a very realistic since fiction. The book is a very realistic. Okay. I see what you're trying to say there. The book is very realistic, even though it is fiction. That's what you want to say, fiction. So, by the way, just to let you know, even though is when you're going to put two things together that you think might not normally go together, like like something being realistic and fiction. So that's what you can do. Irina has said a lot of blood scares me in Tarantino films. Yes, there is a lot of blood. It's usually unrealistic. Kill Bill is an example. There's a lot of blood in Kill Bill. Elena says, I don't take a keen interest in science. I like watching Tarantino movies sometimes. All right, very good. Excellent. Let me ask you guys another question. Are any of you um, are any of you um, sport enthusiasts? So are any of you sport enthusiasts? Let's see what you guys say. Maria has asked, do you take a keen interest in suspense films? Ah, I see what you're going for. Do you mean horror films, Maria? If the answer is to do with horror films, Maria, then the answer is no. I hate horror movies. I'm not good in watching when it comes to horror movies. Um, I think it's because of a few bad experiences in the past. I remember once I went to the cinema at university. My friends took me, we went to the cinema. They said, let's watch this movie. I didn't know what it was. And it turned out to be a film called Saw 3. And I was nearly sick in the cinema. It was just not entertaining. Um, Arena says, Richard, how can we write a negative answer to such questions? You can go with I don't or I'm not. So, for instance, if it's keen on, I would say I don't, sorry, keen interest. I don't take a keen interest in something, or I am not keen on something. I don't tend to do something, watch something, whatever it might be. Uh, I am not uh, something enthusiast. Okay, so that is how you guys can write the negative. Elena, I am sports enthusiast. I am a sports enthusiast. Don't forget the article. It helps me to release bad emotions. Okay, good idea. Yeah, I think sports. I'm keen on sports. I always feel good after doing some exercise. After this, I'm going to go to my terrace and do some exercise in the sun. Um, my favorite type of sports, though, I mean, I've always found the gym a little bit difficult because you're on your own. I like team sports a lot. Maria says, yes, I'm very enthusiastic doing exercise. I love is my favorite place. Go to the gym because I can forget all my stress. Okay, Maria, really well done. I understand again what you're saying. There's one or two mistakes, but the meaning is there. I know what you're saying. You like to go to the gym, you get to exercise, you get, it's a stress release. That's what you want to say, actually. So this is the word for you in terms of what you're describing there. um, it's something called stress release, uh, or stress relief, yes, that's the one I'm thinking of, stress relief. So when you lose your stress, it's called stress relief. So you going to the gym, it's stress relief. It is stress relief. So you let go of stress. That's what you're saying with it. Is my pill antidepressant? Okay, it's your way of stopping yourself being depressed. It's an antidepressant. Yes, sport is that. Sport is really important for the mind, as is getting outside, enjoying the sun. You know, the importance of having vitamin D, the whole thing really. Good, like it's one of the most important things to remain psychologically healthy. Irina can tell me a little bit more probably, but I know that a good diet, good regular exercise, vitamin D from the sun, and good social company, those, and a good sleep pattern. Those 5 things are very important in terms of your overall mood, your feelings as well. So, guys, I'd like to congratulate all of you. Really well done. I hope you have enjoyed this section. If you've enjoyed the session, like and share the video if you already haven't. Um, uh, and I will be back tomorrow at the same time at 4 o'clock with another YouTube lesson. Um, And as for all of you who are joining the Zoom classes in the morning, thank you very much. Hope you are enjoying them. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Sandra has said, I like Nordic walking in the countryside. It keeps my head free. Okay, I see what you mean there. And Elena says, thanks a lot. Take care. So, guys, thank you so much. The 45 minutes is up. I hope you enjoyed the session today. Please leave your comments in the comment section below if you have any questions, or if there are any specific topics or language points you would like me to talk about. In the meantime, have a lovely evening. Enjoy the sun if you can enjoy the sun in any way. And I will be back at the same time tomorrow with another video. Take care. Hope all your loved ones are well and safe. And thank you very much for watching. For all of those who have written in the live chat section, thank you very much for participating. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your answers. For all of you who've liked the video, thank you very much. And for all of you who have joined in and watched the video, thank you very much. So have a lovely evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.